G'day friends and welcome back to Max Power Cardboard Collectibles for the last time in 2023. That's right guys, it is the very last day of the year, so I thought what better time than now to run through my way too early fantasy team reveal for next year. That is right, we are doing our AFL Fantasy Classic team reveal. I mean, it's very early, it's going to change a lot from here. We'll do another one in a couple of months once we've got a bit of more preseason news and stuff going on, but for now, it's all feelings, no facts. That's right, we've got very little training reports, very little of much else going on, so we're going to have a bit of fun with it. But before we get stuck into that, guys, don't forget, downstairs in the description is where you'll find links to all the socials and everything else you might need, the eBay page, whatever. It's all going to be down there, so make sure you check that out. Also, guys, don't forget to get involved in the comments. Let me know what players I'm completely wrong about selecting and which ones I may have just gotten right. We'll see. I've been okay at fantasy the last few years, sort of finishing in or around, well, more so around the top 1,000. So, look, I kind of know what I'm doing. So, let's see. Let's see if we can translate that into this not looking like an absolute palaver of a team. So, yeah, that's going to be it, guys. Without further ado, let's get it. Alright guys, as you can see, we've got a blank slate on the AFL Fantasy website for this year. Our team name for this year will be the same as last year. We did pretty well, so we're going to carry it on. We are Live, Laugh, Liam Ryan. Obviously a little nod to my boy there over at West Coast, but probably won't be picking him in fantasy. We'll see how we go. But look, we're going to start in defense, and look, I think for me, I will be starting at D1 with the one, the only, Jack Sinclair. Look, at this stage, I am doing the unthinkable and fading Nick Dacos to start the year, and I know I sort of hate it too, but I think with Dacos getting the fin tag early against Hawthorn, I think that's in round 3 or something, and it was also having a bye in round 5. Now, I just think I'm going to have to go with Sink for now instead of Dacos. Look, I feel like his role is really good, whether he's on halfback or in the middle. I think he really knows how to find the pill. Look, I also think he's a really low tag risk as well, which is something that obviously is part of my reasoning in not selecting Nick Dacos. I think if you're going to tag anyone at the Saints in defense, it's probably going to be Nazaya Wangaleen-Miller. And if you're looking at someone in the midfield, you're probably going to go to Jack Steele. So, look, I think Jack Sinclair is a great option at D1 for now. Again, this will probably all change by the time the season rolls around, but for now, that is what I'm going with my D1. Now on to D2, and I am going with the Freo boy Hayden Young at D2. I feel like there's a good amount of value in the back line, so I feel like there's not really too much point spending all the way up for the big dogs in this line, but I'm pretty happy with Hayden Young here. I feel like he could almost be the Zach Dawson of 2024 and just go absolutely bananas, but look, I'm going to be a bit more realistic and say that a 95 to 100 average here, probably closer to around that 96, 97, especially if he gets that mid-time like he did last year. We think we saw him score really well. I also like that he adds a bit of a point of difference in the Freo midfield as opposed to Brayshaw and Sarong. Look, the only caveat with that is if he does prove to sort of, really come of age as a midfielder and provide that point of difference, he might be the first one in line for a tag. But look, for now, I think there's a little bit of meat on the bone there. I think Hayden Young is going to be a very popular pick, and that is why I'm going with him at D2 for now. On to D3, and I am going to go with, now I just need to find him. There we go. I'm going with Kitty Coleman for now. Just for now. I mean, look, Kitty Coleman, 100 points at halftime in a grand final. Say no more. He's in. No, look, in all seriousness, I do feel like Kitty has been maybe a little or possibly even a lot overhyped this year due to that grand final performance. There is absolutely no way that he's going to be doing that every week. Look, that being said, he is priced at 70, which for comparison is just slightly more than what we were willing to pay for Elliot Yeo last year before he got injured at round 1. Look, I think at that price, there could be as much as 20 points of upside here, probably closer to about 15. If he can average 85 to 90, I think he'll be a pretty good pick. One thing I don't agree with, a lot of people are talking about the Daniel Rich being gone, so therefore his scores are going to skyrocket. The fact of the matter is, Daniel Rich played 7 games last year. He was already gone. So look, I don't know if that's going to make a thing. Maybe there'll be a few more kick-ins for him. But look, for now, at that price, Kitty can just get right on in there at D3 for me. I think that's not so much a no-brainer. He is someone I'm sort of looking at. He's a bit of a maybe for me for now anyway. But he's holding that place for now until someone else can knock him out of it. Now at D4, I'm going with another Fremantle young gun in Heath Chapman. Look, he is priced at 60. I think he should smash that. I mean, maybe not smash it. I'm not expecting a 95 average or anything, but if he can get to an 80, 85, I think that'll be a great pick, and then we can upgrade him sort of once he's hit his price ceiling. In terms of a footballer, he has got so much talent. It's sort of just yet to be seen yet whether that's going to transfer to a fantasy game. Look, there's also been talk of him roaming through the midfield this year, which is something I'm not really huge on for him. I think coming back from the injury layoff of pretty much all of last year and a few other things, I think the best role for him will be across half back, playing the role that Hayden Young was playing last year and should now be vacant should he move into the middle. But he's a good placeholder for now. He should be on everyone's watch list, and I'll be going with him at D4 for now. At D5, all right, so this seems to be a very popular pick, and I am going with the Carlton Blue, Zach Williams. Now, this absolutely reeks of Elliot Yeo in 2023. Look, can he keep fit and have a good preseason? We'll see. For me, though, if he has one hiccup in the preseason, much like Yeo last year, he's out. He's coming back from an ACL. He turns 30 next year. He's never played a full season of footy. And to be honest, I am just waiting for a reason to take him out. Maybe downgrading a kitty and getting him up to someone, or maybe just putting a rookie in and putting that money somewhere else. I don't know. But for now, while he stays fit, he should go all right. I mean, if he can average an 80, priced at, what's that, like a 57 or something, I think that's a pretty good shout. And if he can stay fit come round one, I'll probably have him there. On to D6 now. We're moving into some rookies, and my first rookie is going to be Dan Curtin from the Crows. This is a bloke that West Coast tried everything they possibly could to get, and it just didn't shake out for them, which is a bit unfortunate for my West Coast. But look, I think at Adelaide is the perfect spot for him to land in terms of fantasy sense. With Tom Day has left the Crows at the end of last year, and this should open up a bit of an intercepting halfback role for Dan Curtin. It's what he's played in his junior footy and in the waffle, as well as playing some midfield as well, I know, but I think his best spot is in that sort of, intercepting Hayden Young of 2023 kind of role, So I think he should be able to average about a 60, 65, which is good enough for me at that price, absolutely. One thing I like about Dan Curtin is he did play a lot of waffle footy last year against big bodies and against real adults in a real league, so he should have some experience playing against guys at maybe not AFL size, but much better than just playing under 18s footy. I think he's going to be a lock. I think he's going to be one of the most selected, and he comes in as my on-field rookie in the defensive line at D6. Right, on to the actual bench option rookies now. Now, just a quick disclaimer. For at least the next 12 hours or so, it is still 2023. So all these rookies are kind of just placeholders, essentially, until we find out who's going to be playing. I know that sort of goes without saying, but one thing I have tried to do is select the ones that are in the best space to play games early. So with all that being said, my first rookie on field is going to be Ari Schoenmakers. Absolute draft slider. Reports of him maybe not being the best bloke around, but I don't know anything about that. That's just what I've heard on the internet, so it's got to be true, right? But look, there was enough sort of doubt there from other clubs to make him slide a long way down, and his loss is our gain in fantasy 2024 because he is now coming in at basement price, and until I find someone else who's going to be better than him for now, he is going to go in my first bench spot, and I like that with Schoenmakers. And my next pick of the 200k rookies in defense is Kobe Bergil from the West Coast Eagles. This is a guy who had his season essentially ruined last year with hamstring injuries, but he was the 29th pick in the 2022 draft. He's a lightning quick halfback wingman, and look, if you can get those hammies under control, he should be one of the first in line for a debut after the current draft class. Well, obviously after Harley Reid, but look, I think the Eagles want him. They want him in the side. They want to get some experience into him. him. He'll probably play some waffle footy early, but I think at some point or another he will definitely be coming in to the West Coast Eagles defense. So that is our defensive line. We've got Jack Sinclair, Hayden Young, Kitty Coleman, Heath Chapman, Zach Williams, and Dan Curtin on field, with Schoenmaker and Bergil on the bench. Hey legends, just cutting in for a quick second to remind you, if you are a new viewer to the channel and you're not subscribed, maybe consider doing so. Helps me out and make sure you don't miss a thing. Cheers guys, let's get back into it. Next, we're going to move on to the midfield, and this is where it sort of starts to get fun. I feel like there is money to be spent in the midfield here. I feel like a lot of fantasy coaches are going to be spending up big in the midfield. Unlike last year, we don't have the metric dick ton of midfielders in the forward line that we can select there. So I really feel like if you're going to spend up big on premium scorers, the midfield is the place to do it this year. So that's exactly what I've done. And at M1, I'm going to be selecting one Zachary Merritt. I feel like everyone's kind of sleeping on this bloke. Look, I know he's $1 million, but to me, he's probably the only one of the $1 million mids that I really trust to match their output next year. I feel like guys like Oliver and Taranto, Bont, Dawson, and Goulden, they sort of all have question marks one way or another, but I feel like Merritt is a really safe option here. You know, I feel Merritt really misses games. His consistency went to another level, especially last year. He only scored under 80 once. Had some monster ceiling games there as well, including some monster scores of 158, 155, 150, and 140. I will be locking this one in at this stage, unless he cops an injury in the preseason. But for right now, Zach Merritt is going to be my M1 for 2024. So moving on to M2 now, and at M2, I'm going to be going with Andy Brayshaw. Good old safe Andy B. Honestly, he should push a 110 average this year. He has a very low risk of getting the tag, as I feel that sort of Sarong and Young are far more damaging with the ball, and they will probably be more inclined to attract attention than Andy. Look, he was carrying a bit of a knee injury early last year, and look, to be honest, even with that, he only really had one bad score of 72, which was his only score under 90 for the year, by the way, and that was in round 5. I feel like Brayshaw had a much better year last year than people are giving him credit for, but I reckon he should be even better again. I feel like there's a little bit of value there, but to be honest, I just think he's a really safe pick, and I think the natural progression of his game means that, yeah, he should be in for a massive 2024. Moving on to M3 now, and I am going with Rory Laird. That's right, I've got Rory Laird at M3. I told you we were going to be spending some dollary doos in the midfield, and this is what we're doing. Look, other than that horrific score in the 50s in round 1 last year, Laird was pretty bloody good all year. Like, there's even an argument to make his value again, given that 50, and he also averaged only 90 from his first 4 games. So it's not really about that for me. For me, it's about the fact that it's Rory Laird. I started with him last year, and, you know, look, there were some nervous moments with, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? He was great, you know. Obviously, I captained him in the first round for that 57. But other than that, he was the goods. He's played 20 or more games in the last 6 of the last 7 years. And even though, like I said, it did feel like he was going to miss every other week with something or another last year, he didn't. He played every game, and for the most part, he dominated. So we're going to keep Rory Laird there at M3. All right, moving on to M4. We're just going to scroll up here a little bit. Oh, fat fingers. And I'm going with Jack Steele at M4. That's right. That is a massive first 4 midfielders for 2024 at this point. Here's a guy who's pretty value, I think, priced at 97, and, you know, could be a lot bigger than that. But for me, he comes with a little bit of a caveat, and that is just watching how he goes this preseason. I know that kind of goes without saying, but look, I want to see him tackling. I want to see a bit more muscle on him. I know he'd lost a bit of weight so he could run more next year. Look, for me, I'm tossing up at M4. It's pretty much between Jack Steele and Sam Walsh. He could very much become Sam Walsh before the start of the season. But look, I'm going with Steele at the moment because he doesn't have an early buy, and that's sort of one thing you'll notice. That's sort of one of the little strategies I'm trying to go with this year is not really picking big primos with an early buy. But for that reason and that reason, pretty much alone, he gets the gig over Walsh. I do love Walsh as a pick, though. I think he's going to be great this year as well. All right, coming in at M5, we got another guy who's probably a little bit of value, to be honest, and that is LDU. Look, LDU, he just needs to get on the park. He's a jet. I think we've all seen it. He's shown some, some sort of glimpses and sort of small periods of really great fantasy performance and ceiling over the last year and a half. And if he can play 22 games and get a bit of continuity, I can see an average here from 105 to 110. Maybe more, who knows? Look, will he play 23 games in 2024? Maybe. Look, probably more likely not, given, past history with injury and all that sort of stuff. However, I think with all the other mids I've chosen, they're all quite safe, quite reliable picks. And I feel like here's where we can sort of take a risk at someone. And look, if he can come in and average sort of 105 to 115 in the first 6 games and then he gets injured, that's fine. I feel like I learned this last year, where I feel that like injuries can sometimes be a bit of a blessing, especially at that time of year where, cows haven't quite fattened and you're looking for ways to sort of downgrade guys, but you don't want to trade out actively playing players, right? So look, if he gets an injury somewhere around round 6 and you have to trade him down to a mid-pricer who started to pop, then, I don't know. I just feel like there's a little bit of a strategy around there about having one guy who you can really take a risk on and just be aware of the fact that, yeah, you're probably going to have to trade him out. Now, in saying that, I know I've got Zach Williams in the back line for now, but look, honestly, I'm really hoping that he just gives me a reason not to pick him. But I feel like this is kind of where LDU can sort of come into his own here. Look, ideally, he plays every game and averages 115. That'd be amazing. But as we all know in fantasy, it's not always an ideal world. And look, for that reason, I'm taking the risk with LDU because I feel like I can have an exit plan with him. All right, so that's a pretty big first 5 midfielders as far as I'm concerned, and we've definitely spent some dollars in the midfield. We've already spent over half our team salary cap there, up the top there. So now we're going to move on to some rookies, and I'm going to go with the big 3, or, well, the popular 3 and they're all on field, of Colby McKercher, Jeremy Sharp, and Riley Sanders. So let's get these boys in. Colby, in you go, son. Sharp, let's get, not Harry, let's get you in, Jeremy, and let's get, how do you spell Riley? Is it with an I? Oh, Jesus, is it what? Okay, so there are so many different ways to spell Riley. So here's R-Y-L. There we go. Learned something today. Look, I think these guys should all play early and score well enough. Especially if Colby McKercher gets the half-back role that's been rumored, a bit like Sheasel last year, I think that'll be a huge win. I also think if that does occur, it'll be really handy because then he can become your DPP link with Dan Curtin. So it just gives you a little bit of added flexibility there. Long way to go, a lot of water to go under the bridge before that happens. But yeah, look, I think that could be a really big win for us fantasy-wise. Look, I think Sharp will just slot nicely into that vacant wing role at Freo. Yes, he's going up against guys like Erasmus and O'Driscoll, but I think if he can put in a good preseason, he should get straight in there. And Riley Sanders, look, the Bailey Smith injury only helps his case for early games. So, look, I think he'll be pretty good as well. He was behind McKercher as the second top scorer in the under-18, so he's got a fantasy game about him. I think we all know enough. I think these days everyone who's into fantasy follows the draft pretty tightly these days. So, look, I think everyone's pretty familiar with the benefits of those 3. They will all be on field for me at this time. On to the bench rookies. And first selection of the bench rookies, we're going with Jai Clark at Geelong. Excuse me. Yeah, look, year in the system, or a year and a half. I think he was a mid-season rookie in 2022. That might not be right. All feelings, no facts here. I did say it in the intro. And I'm also going to go with Shane Manor from the Cats as well. Let's just put him in the mids there. Mature age recruit, suits Geelong pretty well. Yeah, look, I think he'll get games early. He had a cracking performance in the VFL Grand Final, 42-3 or something crazy like that. So he definitely knows how to find a touch and get that leather poisoning. So at this point, he will be in there, and he will also be my DPP link in the forward line for that flexibility. I think that's a pretty smart move for now. Onto the rucks. And this will probably be the most vanilla line of the team. I'm going with Brody Grundy in at R1. Where's he? He's all the way down here. Heap of value. Look, I think he's a lock. I think I just think there's far too much value here in Grundy to not select him. Look, I also think that with the SCG being a smaller ground, high stoppage games there, which should provide him, I mean, especially in winter, but just in general, should provide him with a lot of opportunity to get to work at the stoppages. My only thing with Grundy is that because of that and the high sort of stoppage, smaller ground sort of play style that happens at the SCG, is this going to limit his ability to get points on the outside? Maybe, maybe not. But I think at that price, I think you just got to lock him in there, and Grundy will sit at my R1. At R2, I am going with Tristan Cherry. That's it. I'm going to, what is it? Exery Island, as the traders call it. Look, he should be North's #1 ruck, pretty much unopposed. I think Cal Coleman-Jones will play a mixture of forward and back, and then maybe take ruck contests either in the forward line or in defense. But I think your main man's going to be Tristan Cherry, right? So, look, if he can stay fit through the preseason, I think he can average a good 80 to 85. And again, I think at that price, there is enough meat on the bone there. I think he'll be great. So, yeah, that's why I decided to go with that. Now, again, this might all change. I am still keeping a sneaky eye on Max Gorn, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Next on the bench, I'm just going with Harry Barnett, just because he's 200k. He's got the DPP status, and he is in my team, the West Coast Eagles. Will he get games early? No, he will not. And that will probably be someone else by the time round one rolls around, and we sort of see where, where the rookie rucks are sort of falling. Look, I'd love to have the cash to put, say, like a Conway or a Sweet at R3, but I don't really want to have, at this point, unless they're guaranteed games, 316 to 380k sitting on my bench at R3. Like I said, not until I know they're definitely playing, and then we might try and find a way to work that out. All right, and on to the forward line. Now, this is a lot different from last year, as we spoke about earlier. We had, you could almost have the big five last year in Taranto, Rosie, Cogs, Goulden. Who was the other one? Butters, I think, as well. There's someone else I'm missing. But anyway, they're not there now. And that is what I think is going to make this year quite fun. I think scoring is going to be down a little bit across the board, mainly due to the fact that we can't just have a whole bunch of midfielders in the forward line all year. So I think this year we've got to get a little bit creative, but not at F1, because at F1, I am going to be going with, let's just make sure we're in our forward line, and let's get rid of all that. I'm going with Jack McRae. Should be 100% owned come the season start. I think, Jack McRae is just going to be sort of class above everyone else in the forward line. As I said earlier, the Bailey Smith injury should give McRae the mid-time that he needs to score well. And as long as Bevo doesn't go full Bevo, he should be able to get back up to a 3-figure average. He's done it before. We know he's good for it, and I don't see why he can't do it again. Look, like I said, he's already owned by 45% of teams, and I think it would just be silly to try and be contrarian here and go against the grain. He should be owned by every team come round one. Next in at F2, we're going with Sam Flanders, Nedwado. Look, big watch during the preseason. With Dimmer coming in, it's sort of hard to project what Flanders' role is going to be and what that scoring potential will be. But to me, I feel like they want him in the guts. I mean, they convinced him to stay. He wants to play in the midfield. He had offers from other clubs to come home to Victoria, and he's decided to stay at the Gold Coast. For me, that must mean that they've said to him, look, we're going to give you mid-time. Is he going to be ahead of Took, Rowell, Anderson? Maybe not. He's probably going to end up being the M4 for Gold Coast. But to be honest, that's kind of the role he had last year, and he scored pretty bloody well. Huge ceiling, and just could be the nice value M2 sort of, solid as a rock sort of guy that we're looking for in that position. All right, coming in next at F3, I'm going with Taylor Adams. A very vanilla pick here for me. Bit of a no-brainer. Look, he should be in the guts. He should be averaging around 85 to 90. But he is priced at 76. Look, is that enough meat on the bone? I guess we're going to have to find out. He will have big games and down games. Just a bit of a watch on the body for me. A bit like Zach Williams. I'd much rather pick Taylor Adams than Zach Williams, but in the same regards that if he has any niggles, any hamstrings, any calves, anything like that in the preseason, I will be shipping him off for somebody else, and that will be it for me. So that's my F3. In at F4... I'm going with Zach Fisher at the moment. Look, excuse me. Look, we've all heard rumblings of the Sheasel roll, and if it looks on during the preseason, I want to be all over this. Zach Fisher is a great user of the footy, and I think they're going to want the ball in his hands across half back. Look, I mean, Shees, Hull, and Zeeble haven't exactly been slouches in that role. Look, I also know when we were talking about the mids, I did speak about Colby also having that role. And I think that's fine. I mean, there's two flanks, right? And like Zeeble and Sheasel played together last year. Neither of them really had any trouble scoring last year. So I think it could be a really good pick, this one. But again, I just want to see, you know, whether that role eventuates during the preseason. Look, the only sort of thing I can see with this one is that maybe Clarko wants to speed up the ball movement a bit. I personally don't think North are really ready to really go gung-ho on that. I still have them, if you watched my preseason predictions video, I still had them finishing for the wooden spoon in the bottom of the ladder next year. So look, I just think they're still going to want to hold on to that ball, limit opposition scoring and all that. So yeah, look, I can see this being great if he gets the role. But if we go to the preseason and it looks like he hasn't got the role and he's just playing as a sort of high half forward, see you later, mate. You're done. We're going to toss that fish back. On to F5 and 6, and I've sort of grouped these together because they're very sort of similar price, as I'm going with Finn the Magpie and Harley Reid the Eagle. Where's Harley? There he is. Look, I think that let's start with Finn McRae, right? So Taylor Adams has left the Pies to go to Sydney, and I think this should open the door for Finn to get a little bit, will definitely get game time and get a small amount of mid-clock. I actually think that Paddy Lipinski will be the main beneficiary of Taylor Adams leaving. I think he'll sort of push up more into the midfield, but I still feel like Finn is the next cab off the rank, and I think he'll play that sort of forward mid role that that Lipinski has been playing, you know, over the last sort of year and a half. So look, what did Lipinski average last year? 80s. You know, can Finn do that? Maybe not. He's probably not as good a player and as good of accumulator as Lipinski. But look, I definitely think at the moment, at that price, if he's guaranteed game time and he's going to start round one, he is in. I can see him averaging around 65 to 70, which, like I said, at 300k, that is enough for me. Next, obviously, we got Harley Reid. My boy, every West Coast Eagles fan's new boy. I think it's a no-brainer. I think everyone should just pick him. He will be playing as long as he's fit. So you're really paying up for the job security here. Look, obviously with West Coast history of injuries over the last couple of years, that's no, you know, guarantee that he's going to be fit round one. But look, we all know he's got job security, and I think he's not going to probably set the world on fire in a fantasy sense, but there is absolutely zero chance that they are going to draft Harley Reid and play him in the twos, because the one thing he said is, I don't care where I go, I just want to play AFL footy. So I think it'll go a long way to keeping him if West Coast can chuck him in there from day one. And look, he might get rests in the waffle every now and again, but I think for the most part, he's going to be playing for West Coast. I think he will be in the sort of, you know, he'll pinch hit in the mids, but mainly I think he's going to be playing as a sort of high half forward, sort of, I don't know if it's like that connector role or sort of link role from the midfield to the forward, but, you know, we all know he can play deep forward too, so they might even start him off in a forward pocket, which again, you know, like I said, he's not going to set the world on fire from a scoring point of view, but he's going to be there nearly every week. So Harley Reid at F6 for me. And then moving on to the bench here, I've just got some pretty run-of-the-mill guys that I think everyone's got. Zane Duursma, yes, I know it's nearly 300k on the bench, but, you know, anything could happen between now and then. He's going to go in there. And then after that, I've got Ollie Houghton from the Saints, only because he's a... Sorry, I've still got this cough from COVID like 3 weeks ago. But Ollie Houghton I've got in there just because it's now his second year in the system. First, probably full preseason, and look, who knows? Maybe he gets a game, maybe he doesn't. But to be honest, there wasn't just anyone else there I could really build an argument to put in yet. Obviously, you could have Mana down there, but then who are you going to put as your DPP link in the mids? But look, that's it for now. Oh, who have we got? Oh yeah, but that's right. We were just going to do this, where we literally just find anyone with DPP. Where do we go? DPPs only, 200k. Humphreys, defender mid, you can go in the utility spot. I always burn my utility spot. I probably don't use it as well as I could. But that'll do for now. I'm not overthinking the utility in 2023 for 2024. It's not going to happen. But that's it for now, legends. That's my team. We are going to go over a few other things, but look, I don't mind it. I like the structure at this stage. I like the idea of going really big in the midfield. That's where all the big points are. And then trying to hunt some value in the other lines. I think it's pretty vanilla. I mean, I feel like there's some primos there that I might have that others aren't really considering. Guys like Merritt, for one, I think has pretty low ownership. In fact, let's have a look. What is he currently owned at? 7%. So a little bit higher than I thought, but that's still only 1 in 10 teams. And I guess one thing I'm sort of thinking when I'm looking at ownership at this time of year is that the people who are playing at this time of year, they're your sort of serious players. So they're the guys, if you're looking at chasing a hat, if you're looking at getting into that top 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, whatever, these are the teams you need to be beating, and these are the teams where you want to have your pods from. Whilst I do think it is very important to start relatively vanilla with the no-brainer picks at the start of the year, because you don't want to miss out on price rises and things like that. I also think it's good to have a couple of guys there that, you can make a little bit of ground up early, because it's much easier to maintain your interest when you're doing well at the start. Whereas if you end up at 35,000 after round 3 and then you're like, oh, well, bloody hell, how do I get back from here, So I'm going to have a look at some of the other options I'm looking at. Just little one-for-one little swaps that I'm looking at doing, maybe in terms of what I'd maybe rather have if we pick up any injuries in the preseasons or anything like that. And the first one of that I'm looking at doing is getting a Taylor Adams if he takes an injury in the preseason and taking him down to Josh Rochelle. I think Josh Rochelle is a prime breakout candidate for this year. He had some great scores last year. I actually had him in my team for a little while last year, where he sort of averaged 90 over about a 4-week stretch, getting a little bit of mid-clock, kicking goals, sort of linking between defense and forward. And I think at times he looks really good. And then I would be using that money to put on Tristan Cherry's head and get him up to Max Gawn. Look, at the moment, I am about 40k short of doing that, so I would have to make some concessions somewhere else to make that possible, but that is one of the little sort of structural things I'm doing. Adams and Sherry to Rochelle and Max Gawn. I want to say I'm watching Rochelle very closely in the preseason, especially when preseason matches rolled around. If he's getting some mid-clock, even if it's only, I don't know, if he's getting 25% CBAs, I think, playing that high half-forward connector role, I think he can be a really good scorer. One of the other things I'm looking at in defense is seeing Kitty Coleman and Jack Sinclair, stay with me here, go, and having Tom Stewart and Jordan Ridley coming in. I really like Jordan Ridley this year. He's one of the ones I'm watching, and look, while I know he's probably a bit more of a super coach pick, I think he can also still tear it up in AFL Fantasy. He had some great scores last year, and I think the arrival of Ben McKay only makes it better for him. I think we sort of thought he was going to get that interceptor distributor role when Jake Kelly came into the side. Didn't really happen. It did at times, but he still also had to play as a tall defender at times. And I think with Ben McKay and Mackay, whatever, coming in, I think that means that he should be primed for that role. And I've got a very close eye on Jordan Ridley. Tom Stewart also, good old reliable Tom, has a great early run, doesn't have an early bye, and plays Saints in the first week. So could go absolutely bananas in the first week and make everyone wish that they'd picked him. But look, at this point, I'm going with these guys, but that is also something else I'm looking at. Also, just quietly back on the Jordan Ridley thing, 2% ownership. 2% ownership. So could be another guy that can really help you get out the box early if he pops. So moving on to some sort of strategy stuff. Look, at this stage, as I sort of spoke about earlier, my strategy is to fade players with the early buy. I know I've got Kitty Coleman, Zach Williams in round 2. Let's actually turn this buy detector on so we can have a look. So we've got Zach Williams and Kitty Coleman out in round 2. And then we got Flanders in round 3. Now, round 5, yes, I've got a couple of guys there. But, obviously McRae can just go to the bench for one of the rookies. And you can sort of just make it up. What I don't want is to have 2 players out every week for the first 6 weeks when I'm copying rookie scores, or I could be copying Primo scores. And that's the thing. Everyone can make it to best 18, but it's like, if I've got a Jai Clark on field and then, if someone's got a Jai Clark on field and they're taking his 60 in their 18, whereas I've got, say, like an extra midfielder like a Steele or an LDU who don't have the bye, I'm not taking that 60. So again, I'm really trying to get off to a really good start this year, obviously to keep the engagement, which isn't really a problem for me, but I feel like if you get off to a good start, it just makes your life a hell of a lot easier than spending half the year fighting back to a respectable rank, So, look, I don't think what I've got here is going to hurt me too much. Again, if I did do the Sinclair and Cadine for Stewart and Ridley, that's one less player I've got and an extra Primo again. But look, for now, it is what it is. But yeah, look, I think that's pretty good. Again, Adams is one of the guys I'm iffy on, so he might not even end up there. And if Rochelle's in that space, then look, there's another player I don't have Not that I think he will be full primo, but yeah, I think that'll be pretty good. So that was it, guys. That was my way too early 2024 AFL Fantasy team reveal. Let me know in the comments what you think I got right, what you think I got wrong. Who do you have in your team that you think I'm sleeping on? And yeah, look, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're a newbie around here. Have yourselves a safe and fun New Year's Eve tonight. Don't go too bananas, or do. And if you're waking up with a hangover and you're watching this on New Year's Day, put some Attenborough on, get yourself a dirty burger, and just sit on the couch all day, mate. You've earned it. All right, we'll see you in the next one.